In the bustling city of Los Angeles, where glitz and glamour often overshadow humility, Keanu Reeves found himself at the center of an unexpected situation. Known for his quiet demeanor and genuine kindness, Keanu had just arrived at one of the most luxurious hotels in town after wrapping up a long day on set. The hotel was everything you'd expect from a five-star establishment: polished marble floors, crystal chandeliers hanging from high ceilings, and staff members dressed impeccably in tailored uniforms. Yet beneath its polished surface, something simmered that would soon demand attention. Keanu walked into the grand lobby wearing his usual unassuming attire, a simple black jacket, dark jeans, and sneakers. Around his neck hung a small silver cross, a gift from his late mother, Patricia. For Keanu, the necklace wasn't just jewelry. It held deep personal significance, serving as a constant reminder of love, faith, and resilience. It grounded him during tough times and connected him to cherished memories of family. As he approached the front desk to check in, a young staff member greeted him with a polite smile. At first glance, nothing seemed amiss. But as Keanu handed over his ID, the staff member's eyes flickered toward the cross around his neck. In that fleeting moment, their expressions shifted ever so slightly, just enough for Keanu to notice. Then came the comment, muttered under their breath but loud enough to carry through the otherwise hushed lobby. "Some people really think they can bring their beliefs into places like this." The words hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Few nearby guests turned their heads, some exchanging awkward glances while others pretended not to hear. Keanu froze for a split second, caught off guard by the remark. His initial instinct was to respond, to defend himself or perhaps confront the staff member about their insensitivity. But instead, he chose silence. He knew better than anyone how quickly things could escalate in public settings, especially when emotions ran high. Besides, Keanu wasn't the type to react impulsively. Instead, he processed the moment internally, letting the weight of the comment settle before deciding what to do next. While waiting for his room key, Keanu couldn't help but reflect on the absurdity of the situation. Here he was, a man who had achieved fame and fortune beyond what many could dream of, yet still subject to judgment based on something as trivial as a piece of jewelry. What made the incident even more ironic was the setting. A luxury hotel, designed to cater to comfort and relaxation. Shouldn't such a place prioritize inclusivity and respect above all else? After all, guests paid top dollar to stay here, expecting not only exceptional service but also an environment free from prejudice. Once inside his suite, Keanu stood by the large window overlooking the glittering skyline of Los Angeles. The city, below, buzzed with life, oblivious to the turmoil brewing within him. As he gazed out, his fingers absent-mindedly traced the outline of the cross resting against his chest. Memories flooded back. Childhood moments spent listening to his mother's stories, difficult days navigating Hollywood's cutthroat industry, and quieter times finding solace in simplicity. This tiny piece of metal meant more to him than anyone could understand, and having someone dismiss it so casually stung deeply. But Keanu didn't dwell on anger or frustration for long. Instead, he began thinking about the bigger picture. Why had the staff member felt compelled to make such a remark? Was it truly about the cross, or was there something deeper driving their behavior? Perhaps it stemmed from the pressure to maintain a certain image within the hotel, an image that prioritized exclusivity over empathy. Whatever the reason, Keanu recognized that this wasn't an isolated incident. Similar attitudes likely existed elsewhere, perpetuating cycles of bias and misunderstanding. Determined to address the issue rather than let it fester, Keanu picked up the phone and dialed the hotel manager's number. When the manager answered, Keanu calmly explained what had happened earlier, leaving out no details. To the manager's credit, they listened attentively without interrupting, sensing the gravity of the situation. By the end of the call, Keanu had requested a face-to-face meeting, not to demand punishment for the staff member, but to explore ways to prevent similar incidents in the future. The following morning, Keanu met with the manager in a quiet corner of the hotel's lounge. Over coffee, they discussed the culture of elitism that seemed ingrained in establishments like this one. The manager admitted that employees were often encouraged to enforce strict standards of conduct, sometimes at the expense of genuine human connection. They shared anecdotes of staff members being reprimanded for deviating from protocol, even when doing so might have improved a guest's experience. Keanu nodded thoughtfully, piecing together the puzzle. He realized that the problem wasn't limited to one insensitive comment. It was symptomatic of a larger systemic issue. With this newfound understanding, he proposed a bold idea: organizing workshops focused on fostering empathy, inclusivity, and respect among the hotel staff. These sessions would aim to break down barriers and encourage open dialogue, creating a space where everyone, guests and employees alike, felt valued and heard. The manager hesitated at first, concerned about potential pushback from higher-ups. Corporate policies rarely welcomed change, especially when it involved challenging entrenched norms. But Keanu reassured them, offering to personally fund and participate in the initiative. His sincerity won them over, and together, they began laying the groundwork for what promised to be a transformative journey. Little did Keanu know that this decision would spark a chain reaction, exposing cracks within the hotel's foundation, and ultimately leading to significant consequences for both the institution and those involved. After the initial shock of the incident began to wear off, Keanu found himself alone in his hotel suite, sitting quietly on the edge of the bed. The room was luxurious: plush carpets, a king-sized bed with crisp white linens, and a sprawling view of Los Angeles through floor-to-ceiling windows, but none of it brought him comfort. His mind kept circling back to the comment made by the staff member at the front desk. It wasn't just the words themselves that bothered him, it was what they represented. That single remark had revealed something deeper, something troubling, about how people judged one another based on appearances or symbols. Keanu leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, and let out a slow breath. He glanced down at the silver cross hanging around his neck. Its surface gleamed faintly in the soft light of the room. To anyone else, it might have looked like an ordinary piece of jewelry, a simple accessory chosen to match an outfit or make a fashion statement. But for Keanu, it was far more meaningful. This cross had been a gift from his mother, Patricia, years ago. She had given it to him during a difficult time in their lives, a period when they were struggling financially but clinging tightly to hope. For Keanu, the cross wasn't just a symbol of faith. It was a connection to his roots, a reminder of resilience, love, and the importance of staying grounded no matter where life took him. As he sat there, holding the pendant between his fingers, Keanu thought about how easy it was for people to misinterpret things. Someone seeing him walk into the hotel might assume he was flaunting wealth or showing off. They wouldn't know that despite his success, he still carried reminders of his humble beginnings everywhere he went. The cross was a part of who he was, not something he wore to provoke reactions or draw attention. Yet here he was, being criticized for it in a place that prided itself on catering to all kinds of guests. The irony of the situation didn't escape him. Luxury hotels like this one marketed themselves as havens of relaxation and sophistication, places where anyone could feel welcome and valued. And yet, within minutes of stepping inside, Keanu had experienced the opposite. Rather than feeling welcomed, he'd felt singled out, and not because of anything he'd done wrong. It was unsettling to think that such attitudes could exist in spaces meant to celebrate diversity and inclusivity. Keanu stood up and walked over to the window, gazing out at the city below. Los Angeles stretched endlessly before him, its streets alive with lights and movement. From this height, everything seemed peaceful, almost dreamlike. But Keanu knew better. Beneath the surface of this glittering metropolis lay countless stories of struggle, judgment, and inequality. People often dismissed these issues, assuming they only happened in certain neighborhoods or communities. But the truth was, prejudice could rear its head anywhere, even in the most exclusive corners of society. He sighed again, running a hand through his hair. What should he do? Part of him wanted to shrug it off, chalk it up to a bad day, and move on. After all, he'd faced criticism before. As a public figure, he was no stranger to scrutiny. But this felt different. This wasn't about fame or tabloid gossip. It was personal. The comment hadn't attacked his career or his choices. It had targeted something deeply meaningful to him. And while Keanu wasn't the type to hold grudges, he also believed in standing up for what mattered. If he ignored the situation entirely, wouldn't that send the wrong message? Wouldn't it suggest that such behavior was acceptable? With these thoughts swirling in his mind, Keanu decided to take action. Not out of anger or retaliation, but out of a desire to understand and address the root cause of the problem. Early the next morning, he called the hotel manager and requested a private meeting. When the manager arrived, Keanu greeted them warmly, putting them at ease with his calm demeanor. He explained what had happened the previous day, recounting the staff member's comment without exaggeration or hostility. His tone was measured, almost conversational, as if he were discussing the weather rather than a potentially explosive issue. To the manager's credit, they listened attentively, nodding occasionally as Keanu spoke. By the end of the conversation, they appeared genuinely concerned, assuring Keanu that such behavior was unacceptable and promising to look into the matter further. But Keanu pressed gently, asking questions that went beyond the immediate incident. Why, he wondered aloud, would someone working in hospitality feel comfortable making such a remark? Was it a reflection of their personal beliefs, or was it influenced by the environment they worked in? Had they received training on how to interact respectfully with guests from diverse backgrounds? These questions led to a broader discussion about the hotel's culture. The manager admitted that employees were often under immense pressure to uphold a specific image, one that emphasized exclusivity and perfection. While this approach might appeal to some guests, it also created an atmosphere where staff members felt constrained, even fearful of stepping outside rigid guidelines. Mistakes were punished harshly, and deviations from protocol were rarely tolerated. Over time, this mindset trickled down, affecting how employees treated not only guests but also each other. Keanu nodded thoughtfully, piecing together the bigger picture. He realized that the problem wasn't isolated to one rude comment. It was systemic. The hotel's emphasis on maintaining a polished facade had inadvertently fostered an environment where empathy and individuality were undervalued. Employees weren't encouraged to see guests as real people with unique stories. They were trained to view them as transactions, opportunities to uphold the brand's reputation. No wonder the staff member had reacted so dismissively to Keanu's cross. In their eyes, it might have seemed out of place, a disruption to the carefully curated image they were expected to project. Determined to make a difference, Keanu proposed a solution. Organizing workshops focused on empathy, inclusivity, and respect. These sessions would aim to shift the hotel's culture, teaching employees to value human connection over rigid adherence to rules. He envisioned interactive discussions, role-playing exercises, and storytelling opportunities that would help staff members understand the impact of their words and actions. Most importantly, he wanted these workshops to be mandatory, not optional, for everyone, from housekeeping staff to senior management. The manager hesitated initially, worried about potential pushback from higher-ups. Corporate policies rarely welcomed change, especially when it involved challenging entrenched norms. But Keanu reassured them, offering to personally fund and participate in the initiative. "This isn't about me," he said earnestly. "It's about creating a space where everyone feels respected and valued. Isn't that what hospitality is supposed to be about?" His sincerity won the manager over. Together, they began drafting plans for the workshops, discussing logistics and brainstorming ideas to make them impactful. Keanu insisted on being actively involved, not just as a financial supporter but as a participant. He wanted to lead by example, showing employees that change was possible and necessary. As the meeting came to a close, Keanu felt a sense of purpose wash over him. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would likely be resistance, skepticism, and challenges along the way. But he also knew that meaningful change rarely came without effort. By addressing the issue head-on, he hoped to inspire others to do the same, to recognize the power of small actions and the importance of treating every individual with dignity and respect. For Keanu, this wasn't just about fixing one hotel's culture. It was about starting a ripple effect, sparking conversations that could extend far beyond these walls. And as he left the manager's office, he couldn't help but feel optimistic. Sometimes, the smallest moments of courage could lead to the biggest transformations. The meeting between Keanu Reeves and the hotel manager had planted a seed, an idea that, if nurtured properly, could grow into something transformative. But as plans for the workshops began to take shape, it became clear that this journey wouldn't be without its obstacles. The hotel's upper management, a group of executives who rarely interacted with guests or frontline staff, soon caught wind of Keanu's involvement. At first, they were intrigued. After all, having a celebrity associated with their brand was excellent publicity. But when they learned about the nature of his proposal, their enthusiasm quickly turned to skepticism. One particular executive, a stern woman named Margaret, emerged as the loudest voice of opposition. She had spent decades climbing the corporate ladder in the hospitality industry, building a reputation for maintaining strict standards and ensuring profitability. To her, hotels weren't just places where people stayed. They were businesses designed to cater to high-paying clientele. Anything that deviated from this focus, like workshops on empathy or inclusivity, was seen as unnecessary fluff, a distraction from what truly mattered: revenue. Margaret called an emergency meeting with the hotel's senior leadership team, including the manager who had been working closely with Keanu. Her tone was sharp, her words cutting. "We're not running a charity here," she declared during the meeting. "These kinds of initiatives might sound good on paper, but they'll only create more problems. Employees will start questioning authority, guests will feel uncomfortable, and our bottom line will suffer." Her argument struck a chord with some members of the team, particularly those who shared her old-school mindset. They worried that prioritizing empathy over efficiency would undermine the hotel's carefully crafted image of exclusivity. Others, however, remained silent, unsure whether to side with Margaret or support Keanu's vision. The tension in the room was palpable, with both sides exchanging cautious glances as the debate unfolded. Meanwhile, Keanu continued preparing for the workshops, unaware of the brewing storm behind closed doors. He collaborated with diversity consultants and psychologists to design sessions that would resonate with employees at every level. Role-playing exercises, storytelling circles, and open discussions about bias and privilege were all part of the plan. Keanu even reached out to friends in the entertainment industry, asking them to share personal anecdotes about facing discrimination or judgment in professional settings. These stories, he believed, would humanize the lessons and drive home the importance of treating others with respect. But when news of Margaret's resistance leaked, courtesy of an anonymous tip, the situation escalated unexpectedly. Someone within the hotel sent details of the internal conflict to a popular online news outlet, framing it as a clash between profit-driven corporate policies and a Hollywood star's mission to promote kindness. The story went viral almost instantly, sparking heated debates across social media platforms. Fans of Keanu rallied behind him, flooding comment sections with messages of support. Hashtags like #empathy over exclusivity and Stand with Keanu trended worldwide, putting immense pressure on the hotel chain to reconsider its stance. Public opinion wasn't the only force pushing the company to act. Investors and business partners started weighing in, concerned about how the controversy might affect the brand's reputation. Luxury hotels thrived on customer loyalty, and alienating potential guests by appearing out of touch with modern values could have serious financial consequences. Faced with mounting scrutiny, the hotel's CEO ordered an internal investigation into workplace practices and employee conduct. What they uncovered shocked even those familiar with the company's culture. Interviews with current and former employees revealed widespread dissatisfaction. Many described feeling trapped in a system that valued appearances over authenticity. Frontline workers reported being reprimanded for small mistakes, such as smiling too broadly or engaging in casual conversation with guests. Managers admitted to enforcing rules inconsistently, often punishing employees who showed compassion or flexibility. One housekeeper recounted how she'd once been scolded for taking extra time to comfort a grieving guest whose family member had passed away. a moment she considered one of the most meaningful experiences of her career. As the findings came to light, Margaret found herself increasingly isolated. Her rigid approach, once seen as effective, now seemed outdated and harmful. When confronted with evidence of how her policies had contributed to a toxic work environment, she struggled to defend herself. In the end, the decision was unanimous. Margaret was fired, not because of Keanu's direct intervention, but because her actions no longer aligned with the direction the company needed to take. For Keanu, the outcome was bittersweet. While he was relieved that the hotel was finally addressing its issues, he felt sympathy for Margaret. Like many people in positions of power, she had likely convinced herself that her methods were justified, that sacrificing individuality for uniformity was the price of success. But as Keanu reflected on the situation, he realized that true leadership wasn't about control. It was about empowering others to be their best selves. With Margaret gone, the hotel embraced Keanu's vision wholeheartedly. Workshops on empathy and inclusivity became mandatory for all employees, starting with the flagship location where the incident had occurred. Keanu played an active role in shaping these programs, drawing from his own experiences navigating fame while staying grounded. During one session, he shared a story about filming The Matrix and how crew members initially underestimated him because of his quiet demeanor. Over time, though, they came to appreciate his humility and dedication, proving that judgments based on surface impressions were often misleading. Employees responded positively to the workshops, describing them as eye-opening and inspiring. For many, it was the first time they'd been encouraged to speak openly about their frustrations and aspirations. A bellhop confessed that he'd always dreamed of pursuing photography, but feared rejection if he stepped away from his stable job. A concierge revealed how much joy she derived from helping guests celebrate special occasions, even though her supervisors discouraged getting too involved. These moments of vulnerability fostered a sense of camaraderie among staff members, breaking down barriers that had long divided them. Guests noticed the difference too. Reviews poured in praising the hotel's renewed warmth and attentiveness. One traveler wrote about how a receptionist had gone above and beyond to accommodate her dietary restrictions, turning what could have been a stressful stay into a delightful experience. Another mentioned how a valet had remembered his name after seeing him just once, a small gesture that made him feel valued. Slowly but surely, the hotel transformed from a cold, impersonal institution into a welcoming space where everyone felt seen and appreciated. Through it all, Keanu remained humble, deflecting praise and emphasizing the collective effort behind the change. "This isn't my victory," he told reporters during a brief interview. "It's proof that when we listen to each other and commit to doing better, amazing things can happen." His words resonated deeply, reminding people that progress often begins with a single act of courage, a willingness to stand up for what's right even when it's easier to stay silent. As the dust settled, Keanu couldn't help but reflect on how far they'd come since that fateful day in the lobby. What had started as a seemingly minor incident had snowballed into something much larger, exposing cracks in a system that desperately needed repair. And while there was still work to be done, Keanu felt hopeful. Hopeful that the lessons learned here would ripple outward, inspiring other organizations to prioritize humanity over hierarchy. After all, true luxury wasn't about marble floors or crystal chandeliers. It was about creating spaces where people felt genuinely cared for, no matter who they were or what they wore around their necks. The fallout from the internal investigation sent shockwaves through the hotel chain. Margaret's dismissal was a pivotal moment, but it wasn't just her exit that made headlines. It was the revelation of the toxic culture she had helped foster. Employees who had once feared speaking out now found themselves emboldened by the public support for Keanu's initiative. Social media buzzed with stories shared by current and former staff members, painting a vivid picture of what life had been like under the old regime. Some recounted being reprimanded for showing kindness to guests. Others described how their creativity or individuality had been stifled in favor of rigid protocols. One memorable post came from a former bartender who revealed he'd been written up for offering free drinks to a couple celebrating their anniversary, a gesture that should have been celebrated, not penalized. This wave of transparency forced the hotel chain to confront uncomfortable truths about its operations. While luxury brands often marketed themselves as havens of sophistication and comfort, the reality behind the scenes told a different story. Employees were treated more like cogs in a machine than human beings, expected to prioritize efficiency over empathy at every turn. For years, this approach had gone unquestioned, hidden beneath layers of polished marble and five-star ratings. But now, thanks to Keanu's persistence and the courage of those willing to share their experiences, the cracks in the foundation were impossible to ignore. With Margaret no longer wielding her iron grip, the company scrambled to rebuild trust, both internally and externally. The CEO issued a public apology, acknowledging the harm caused by outdated policies and promising sweeping reforms. "We failed our employees and our guests," the statement read, "but we are committed to learning from these mistakes and becoming an example of what true hospitality should look like." It was a bold declaration, one that signaled a dramatic shift in priorities. No longer would profit margins dictate every decision. Instead, the focus would be on creating an environment where respect and inclusivity reigned supreme. Keanu played a central role in guiding this transformation. Despite his fame, he approached the task with humility and patience, recognizing that change wouldn't happen overnight. He worked closely with consultants and psychologists to refine the workshop curriculum, ensuring it addressed not only surface-level behaviors, but also deeper systemic issues. Each session began with a simple yet powerful message. Every person you interact with has a story. Your job isn't just to serve them, it's to make them feel valued. One of the most impactful exercises involved role-playing scenarios designed to highlight unconscious biases. Employees were asked to imagine themselves in someone else's shoes, a single mother traveling alone with 2 young children, a business executive dealing with a family crisis, or even a guest wearing something unconventional, like Keanu's cross necklace. These activities encourage participants to think critically about how they might respond in real-life situations and challenge them to consider perspectives outside their own. Many left the sessions visibly moved, some even in tears, as they realized how their actions or lack thereof could profoundly affect others. As word of the workshop spread, other hotels within the chain began requesting similar programs. What started as a localized effort quickly evolved into a company-wide movement. Executives flew in from various locations to observe the sessions firsthand, marveling at the positive energy radiating from employees who had previously seemed disengaged or demoralized. Even skeptics couldn't deny the results. Staff morale soared, turnover rates dropped, and customer satisfaction scores reached record highs. Guests, too, noticed the difference. Reviews flooded in praising the newfound warmth and attentiveness of the hotel staff. One elderly woman wrote about how a concierge had personally escorted her to her room after noticing she was struggling with her luggage, refusing to let her tip him afterward. "He said, 'It's my pleasure to help,'" she recalled. "I've never felt so cared for in my life." Another reviewer described a late-night encounter with a housekeeping attendant who noticed her crying quietly in the hallway. Instead of walking past, the attendant sat down beside her, offering tissues and a listening ear. "She didn't judge me or ask questions," the guest wrote. "She just reminded me that I wasn't alone." These anecdotes weren't anomalies, they became the norm. The hotel's reputation shifted from one of exclusivity to one of genuine connection. People began choosing it not because of its lavish amenities, but because of the sense of belonging it offered. Word-of-mouth recommendations soared, drawing in new clientele eager to experience the new spirit of the establishment. For Keanu, watching this evolution unfold was deeply rewarding. He attended several of the workshops, sitting alongside employees rather than positioning himself as an authority figure. His presence alone served as a reminder that everyone, regardless of status, had a role to play in fostering a kinder, more inclusive world. During one particularly poignant session, a young bellhop stood up to share his thoughts. Before these workshops, I thought my job was just to carry bags and open doors, he said. But now I realize I'm part of something bigger. Every smile, every hello, every little thing I do can make someone's day better. That's powerful. His words resonated with everyone in the room, including Keanu, who nodded in agreement. It was moments like these that reinforced why he had pushed so hard for change. This wasn't about fixing one hotel or appeasing critics. It was about proving that empathy could coexist with excellence, that treating people with dignity didn't detract from professionalism, but enhanced it. Of course, challenges remained. Not everyone embraced the new direction immediately. Some longtime employees struggled to adapt, clinging to habits ingrained over decades of working under Margaret's leadership. Others grumbled about the extra time required for training sessions, arguing that it took away from their ability to perform core duties. But even among these dissenters, there were signs of progress. Slowly but surely, resistance gave way to curiosity, and curiosity blossomed into acceptance. By the end of the first year, the hotel chain had undergone a remarkable metamorphosis. Its flagship location, once synonymous with cold efficiency, became a beacon of compassion and inclusivity. Awards rolled in, not just for service quality, but for workplace culture and community engagement. Local charities partnered with the hotel to host fundraising events, while schools invited staff members to speak about careers in hospitality. The ripple effects extended far beyond the walls of the building, touching lives in ways no one could have anticipated. Through it all, Keanu remained steadfast in his belief that small actions could lead to big changes. He knew the journey wasn't over. There would always be room for growth. But he also recognized that they had taken a crucial step forward. By standing up for what mattered and inspiring others to do the same, he had shown that kindness wasn't just a virtue, it was a catalyst for transformation. And as he walked through the lobby one evening, greeted by smiles and heartfelt thank yous from employees and guests alike, he couldn't help but feel proud, not of himself, but of the collective effort that had brought them here. After all, true change was never the work of one person. It was the result of many coming together to create something extraordinary. Months had passed since the luxury hotel first embarked on its journey of transformation, and the changes were undeniable. What had once been a symbol of exclusivity and rigid protocol was now becoming known as a place where empathy reigned supreme. Employees moved through their days with renewed energy, their interactions with guests infused with warmth and authenticity. Guests, in turn, responded positively, leaving glowing reviews that highlighted not just the hotel's opulence but also the genuine care they received during their stay. The once toxic culture that had simmered beneath the surface was slowly being replaced by one rooted in kindness, respect, and understanding. Keanu Reeves returned to the hotel not as a guest embroiled in controversy, but as an honored speaker at a gala celebrating diversity and inclusion in the hospitality industry. The event was held in the hotel's grand ballroom, which had been transformed into a dazzling space filled with twinkling fairy lights, elegant floral arrangements, and tables adorned with crisp white linens. As Keanu stepped onto the stage, the room erupted into applause, a testament to the impact he'd had on everyone present. Dressed in his signature understated style, Keanu stood behind the podium, smiling warmly at the audience. He began by thanking the hotel staff and management for their courage and commitment to change. "When I first came here," he said, pausing briefly to let his words sink in, "I didn't expect this journey to take me where it has. But what happened wasn't about me. It was about all of us deciding to do better. It was about recognizing that every person we meet deserves to be treated with dignity and respect." His speech was heartfelt and personal, weaving together anecdotes from his own life with lessons learned throughout the process of reforming the hotel's culture. He spoke about growing up in a family that valued humility over material success, recalling how his mother taught him to find strength in vulnerability. "She used to tell me," Keanu shared, "that the bravest thing you can do is show up as yourself, even when the world tries to make you feel like you don't belong." That philosophy had guided him through challenges both big and small, from navigating Hollywood's cutthroat environment to standing firm in the face of criticism. He then turned his attention to the incident that sparked everything, the comment about his cross necklace. Rather than dwelling on the negativity of that moment, Keanu framed it as an opportunity for growth. That day in the lobby reminded me of something important. We're all shaped by our experiences, our beliefs, and the things we hold dear. Sometimes those differences can create barriers between us, but they don't have to. If we take the time to listen, to truly understand each other, we can break down those walls and build bridges instead. The audience listened intently, hanging on his every word. Many nodded in agreement, while others wiped away tears, moved by his sincerity. Keanu continued, sharing stories he'd heard from employees during the workshops. There was the housekeeper who had confided in him about feeling invisible for years, only to rediscover her passion for helping others after attending the sessions. Or the young receptionist who admitted she'd always been afraid to speak up until the training encouraged her to embrace her voice. These stories, Keanu emphasized, were proof that change was possible, and that it started with believing in people. As the evening wore on, other speakers took the stage, adding their voices to the conversation. A veteran employee recounted how the new initiatives had reignited her love for the hospitality industry. "For so long I felt like I was just going through the motions," she confessed. "But now I wake up excited to come to work because I know I'm making a difference. Not just for our guests, but for my colleagues too." Another participant, a manager who had initially resisted the changes, admitted that seeing the positive impact firsthand had changed his perspective. "I thought focusing on empathy would slow us down," he said, "but it's actually made us stronger. Our team works better together, and our guests notice the difference." The gala concluded with a panel discussion featuring experts in diversity, leadership, and workplace culture. Together, they explored ways to sustain momentum and ensure that the progress achieved thus far wouldn't fade over time. Suggestions ranged from implementing regular check-ins with staff to creating mentorship programs that paired seasoned employees with newcomers eager to learn. Keanu chimed in, emphasizing the importance of accountability. "Change isn't a one-time thing," he reminded everyone. "It's ongoing. We have to keep asking ourselves, are we doing enough? Are we listening? And are we willing to adapt when we see areas for improvement?" By the end of the night, the atmosphere in the ballroom was electric. Attendees mingled enthusiastically, exchanging ideas and swapping contact information. Some vowed to bring similar initiatives to their own workplaces, inspired by what they'd witnessed. Others expressed gratitude to Keanu for using his platform to champion such a meaningful cause. For many, the event served as a powerful reminder that true luxury wasn't defined by expensive furnishings or extravagant amenities. It was about creating spaces where people felt seen, heard, and valued. In the weeks that followed, the ripple effects of the gala spread far beyond the hotel chain. News outlets covered the event extensively, highlighting the strides the company had made in fostering inclusivity. Industry leaders praised the initiative, calling it a model for others to follow. Social media buzzed with praise as fans and critics alike applauded Keanu's unwavering dedication to making a difference. Hashtags like Tucker Empathy in Action and Hospitality with Heart trended globally, sparking conversations about the role businesses played in shaping societal values. But perhaps the most profound impact was felt within the hotel itself. Employees carried the lessons they'd learned into their daily lives, applying them not just at work but in their communities as well. One waiter started volunteering at a local shelter, crediting the workshops for inspiring him to give back. A front desk clerk organized a clothing drive for families in need, rallying her coworkers to contribute. Even small acts of kindness, like holding the door open for a stranger or offering a kind word to someone having a tough day, became commonplace. Guests continued to rave about their experiences, often returning multiple times because of the unique sense of connection they felt. One couple chose the hotel as the venue for their wedding, citing the staff's warmth and attentiveness as key factors in their decision. Another traveler wrote a heartfelt letter to management, thanking them for restoring her faith in humanity after a particularly difficult year. "This place isn't just a hotel," she wrote. "It's a sanctuary, and I'll never forget how cared for I felt here." For Keanu, watching these transformations unfold was deeply fulfilling. He visited the hotel periodically, checking in on the progress and offering guidance whenever needed. But more than anything, he marveled at how much had changed since that fateful day in the lobby. What had begun as a single act of defiance, a refusal to let prejudice go unchallenged, had grown into a movement that touched countless lives. Yet, despite the accolades and recognition, Keanu remained humble. When reporters asked him about his role in the hotel's transformation, he shrugged off the praise, redirecting attention to the employees and guests who had embraced the vision. "I'm just one piece of the puzzle," he told them. "The real heroes are the people brave enough to challenge the status quo and commit to doing better. They're the ones proving that kindness isn't just a nice idea. It's a necessity." As he prepared to leave the hotel after one of his visits, Keanu paused in the lobby, glancing around at the bustling activity. Staff members greeted guests with smiles, their interactions marked by genuine warmth. Children laughed as they ran across the polished marble floors, while couples sat cozy together in plush armchairs. It was a scene brimming with life and connection, a stark contrast to the sterile, impersonal atmosphere he'd encountered months earlier. Keanu smiled softly, adjusting the silver cross around his neck. It still gleamed faintly in the light, a quiet reminder of where this journey had begun. He knew there would always be challenges ahead, moments when the path forward seemed uncertain. But as long as people were willing to stand up for what mattered, to treat each other with compassion and respect, the future looked bright. After all, the power of kindness was limitless, and Keanu Reeves had proven that sometimes, all it took was one person to spark a revolution of the heart. The legacy of Keanu Reeves's involvement with the luxury hotel stretched far beyond its gleaming walls and polished corridors. It became a story told not just within the hospitality industry but across countless sectors, inspiring businesses and individuals alike to rethink their approach to human connection. What had started as a single moment of judgment in a lobby had grown into something much larger, a testament to the power of empathy, courage, and collective action. Months after the gala celebrating diversity and inclusion, the hotel continued to thrive under its new philosophy. Employees who once felt invisible now walked through the halls with confidence, knowing their contributions were valued. Guests arrived seeking more than just comfort. They sought an experience that reminded them of the goodness in humanity. The hotel's reputation soared, earning awards not only for service excellence but also for fostering a workplace culture rooted in compassion. Industry leaders began referring to it as the gold standard for modern hospitality, a model others aspired to replicate. But the impact didn't stop there. Other hotels in the chain followed suit, adopting similar initiatives and tailoring them to fit their unique environments. Workshops on empathy and inclusivity spread like wildfire, becoming mandatory training programs for staff at every level. Managers who had initially resisted change found themselves championing the cause, sharing success stories from their own locations. One regional director recounted how a housekeeping team had gone above and beyond to surprise a guest celebrating her birthday, decorating her room with handmade cards and balloons. Another described how a concierge helped reunite a lost child with their family during a chaotic event, turning what could have been a nightmare into a heartwarming reunion. These moments weren't anomalies. They became part of the fabric of everyday operations. Word of these efforts reached competitors, many of whom scrambled to implement their own versions of the program. Soon, entire industries outside hospitality began taking notice. Retail chains, tech companies, and even educational institutions reached out to learn more about the workshops and how they could adapt them for their teams. Keanu's name became synonymous with driving meaningful change, though he consistently downplayed his role, insisting that credit belonged to those brave enough to embrace vulnerability and growth. For Keanu himself, life returned to its usual rhythm, balancing blockbuster films with quiet moments of reflection. Yet the lessons he'd learned throughout this journey stayed with him, shaping how he interacted with the world. On set, he encouraged directors and crew members to prioritize open communication and mutual respect. During interviews, he spoke candidly about the importance of standing up for one's values, urging others to do the same. His humility remained intact, but his resolve deepened. He understood now more than ever that small actions could ripple outward, creating waves of positive change. Back at the hotel, employees often reflected on how much their lives had transformed. Many credited the workshops not just with improving their professional skills, but also with enriching their personal relationships. A bellhop named Marcus shared how the exercises on active listening had helped him reconnect with his teenage daughter, bridging a gap that had widened over years of miscommunication. "I used to think I was too busy to really hear her," he admitted during a team meeting. "But now I know that listening isn't just about hearing words, it's about understanding feelings." His story resonated deeply with colleagues, sparking conversations about how the principles of empathy extended beyond work. Guests, too, carried pieces of the hotel's ethos home with them. Some wrote letters detailing how their stays had inspired them to be kinder in their daily lives. One woman described how a front desk clerk's warmth had motivated her to volunteer at a local shelter. Another man recounted how a valet's simple act of holding an umbrella over him in the rain had reminded him to slow down and appreciate the little things. These anecdotes reinforced a truth Keanu had always believed: kindness was contagious. When someone experienced genuine care, they were more likely to pay it forward. As the months turned into years, the hotel's transformation became a case study in leadership and cultural reform. Business schools included it in their curriculums, analyzing how a combination of celebrity influence, grassroots advocacy, and corporate accountability had led to lasting change. Journalists wrote feature articles exploring the intersection of luxury and humanity, posing questions like, can exclusivity coexist with inclusivity? Is it possible to balance profitability with purpose? The answers lay in the hotel's ongoing success, a living example of how prioritizing people over profit didn't diminish financial performance but enhanced it. Keanu occasionally returned to the hotel, not as a guest or a speaker, but as a friend checking in on old companions. Staff members greeted him warmly, updating him on milestones big and small. Babies had been born, promotions earned, dreams pursued. Each visit left him feeling hopeful, reminded of the resilience and potential within every individual. During one such trip, he sat in the lounge with a cup of coffee, observing the lively hum of activity around him. Children played hide-and-seek near the fountain, couples whispered sweet nothings in cozy corners, and employees moved with purpose, their smiles genuine. A young intern approached him hesitantly, clutching a notebook. "Mr. Reeves," she began, her voice trembling slightly, "can I ask you something?" Keanu nodded encouragingly, setting aside his coffee. Do you think one person can really make a difference?" Her question lingered in the air, simple yet profound. Keanu leaned back in his chair, considering his response carefully. "Absolutely," he said finally, meeting her gaze. "One person can plant a seed. But remember, it takes everyone working together to help it grow. You don't have to solve everything on your own. Just start where you are, use what you have, and see where it leads." The intern blinked, visibly moved. She thanked him before hurrying off, clutching her notebook tightly. Watching her go, Keanu smiled softly. He knew she'd carry those words with her, perhaps passing them along when someone else needed encouragement. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden hues across the city skyline, Keanu stood by the window in his suite. The cross still hung around his neck, its weight familiar and comforting. It symbolized so much more than faith now. It represented resilience, connection, and the belief that even in the face of adversity, people could come together to create something beautiful. He thought about the road ahead, not just for the hotel but for society as a whole. Challenges would undoubtedly arise, moments when progress seemed to stall or regress. But if the past few years had taught him anything, it was that hope persisted. As long as there were individuals willing to stand up, speak out, and extend a hand, the world would continue to move forward. Keanu stepped away from the window, slipping the cross beneath his shirt. Tomorrow awaited, filled with possibilities and opportunities to make a difference. And whether on screen or off, he knew. He'd keep striving to leave the world a little better than he found it, one act of kindness at a time.